The Late Morning Program with Nam Ras Podcast.
Hey, Hare Krishna, everyone. You're listening to the Nam Ras Podcast, the #1 Hare Krishna podcast in the world. So honored to have Caru Prabhu on with me today. Caru Prabhu, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me. Good to be here with you and Dina Bandhu.
Thank you so much for joining us, Prabhu.
Dina, speaking to the mic there.
Yes.
Thanks, Dina, for my co-host when my other co-host can't make it. Dina lives locally, so he's kind enough to join me.
Always a joy. Thank you.
So for those of you,
he's got a nice smile. I'll say that.
He does. He's a really nice devotee. Really nice devotee. If you don't know him, then
I just met him 5 minutes ago, but I'm warming up to him already.
Great. So Caru Prabhu, for those of you who don't know, is based in Spanish Fork, Utah. He's developed that community, that temple. He does those holy festivals that have thousands and thousands of participants. And I'd love to talk to you today, Prabhu, about, maybe we can start off, what inspired you to spread Krishna consciousness, or give Krishna consciousness to others in this very unique way, whether it's festivals or the temple that you built there in the mountains. It's just a beautiful place. Just see if we can start off there.
I would say to devotees, especially if they're starting out, we can do anything for Krishna. We're just Nitya Siddha Krishna Prema. We're servants of Krishna. Whatever needs to be done, we're more than happy to do it. And the fact is that even if you do something which is not consonant with your nature, if you do it often enough, you will get used to it. You will get to like it. And so there's nothing we really can't do theoretically about Krishna. However, having said that, if you find out what your particular nature is, what you're good at, what your strong point is, then you're never even going to think about any alternatives, any options. You're never going to think about anything other than being on the straight and narrow for Prabhupada. I'm fortunate in that way. I found out early on that I have a skill for communicating. My mother was a third grade teacher. She did crossword puzzles. She was extremely articulate. She always had the right word exactly. And my father wasn't as well educated as my mother, but he loved to get in front of audiences and harangue them. In his church, every once in a while, they would tap him to not give the talk in the main chapel, but in the parish house. He would give a layman's talk, and boy, would he ever get wound up. Sometimes I would be even embarrassed watching him. So between those two, I inherited that DNA, you might say. And my heartbeat goes down, the larger the crowd, the more my pulse goes down.
Wow.
Jerry Seinfeld once joked that the greatest fear most people have is speaking in public, and the second fear is death. So the conclusion would be people would rather die than speak in public.
Yeah.
But if I ever had a fear of that, I got over it very early. I remember we were traveling with the BBT library party throughout America. We came to Chicago or Detroit, and there was a devotee who was passed on named Pranarnava, an African-American devotee, wonderful kirtan singer. And after I'd given a Bhagavatam class, he came up to me and he said, "Caru, you don't say much normally. You're not exactly a social butterfly. You're kind of quiet and shy. But when you give class, when you open your mouth and an official," he said, "you're amazing." And when someone tells you that, it might have been something that was there all along, but because it was your strong point, because it came naturally, you didn't notice it. You just kind of took it for granted. And our educational system focuses on your weak points in the name of all-roundedness. We have to take all these courses that we hate, that are not in consonant with our nature. So sometimes it takes a friend or an observer to identify for you what your strong point is. So after I heard that and it sunk in, then I was off and running. And if you think about our history, we were in Los Angeles for 10 years. I was a life membership director. I had a radio program. I rented time on a station out of Pasadena. We had 1 hour a week for the Krishna show. That coalesced all the Indian communities, all the Indian families in Los Angeles, and got our life membership off to a really good start. Everyone became aware of us through that radio show. But after a couple of years of doing that in 80 and 81, it occurred to me that I have a desire to do more public communication than just 1 hour a week. And for that same $1,000 that it costs to have an hour in the LA market, we could perhaps cover the mortgage of a smaller station in some more rural area. So at that time, I started looking for stations for sale in a publication called Broadcast Weekly. And after about a year, I noticed a small AM radio daytimer station for sale near Provo, Utah, near Brigham Young University. Okay, now backtracking, I feel this is very much on my mind because I was scheduled for a long time to address a consortium of Bhakti Maharaj's disciples.
Oh.
They reached out to me months ago, and they said on Saturday, July 29th, we're going to have this tribute to Bhakti Tirtha, and there's an hour for Prabhupada disciples to reminisce, and can you do it? And I said, yes. Well, it just so happened I was getting off the plane in JFK, renting a car, and negotiating New York traffic at the very time I was supposed to be on. So I dropped the ball in that. I just did not appear. They're probably all cursing me right now. But the thing is that when I saw a radio station for sale at BYU, I remembered that Bhakti Tirtha, who used to be Ganesham, and Mahabhuti, the two founding members of the BBT Library Party, went to Brigham Young University to sell sets of Prabhupada's books. The most we'd ever sold on any college campus was Dartmouth and Harvard. The modus operandus was to get professors to recommend, or professor recommend cards. You pick them up at the desk, and then you take them around to the professors. And if you get one or two professors to sign that, then the acquisitions librarian would definitely order a set. So everywhere we always got one set sold, no problem. Amazing. That was a given.
I love that.
But every once in a while,
service.
a professor would order a set for himself, which is rare, but it happened. And then every once in a while, the college would have more than one library. So the most we'd ever sold was Dartmouth and Harvard. I was on the Dartmouth crew. And in each case, 3 libraries took and 3 professors took. So when the 2-man crew, formerly Ganesham, later Bhakti Tirtha Swami and Mahabhuti went to, and we'd usually hit campus about 8 o'clock, and we'd leave by lunchtime, having accomplished, anywhere between 1 or 2, 3 sales. So we got word that Ganesham and Mahabhuti had been to BYU campus. They'd spent 2 whole days there and sold 18 sets of Prabhupada's books.
Incredible.
Amazing.
That was in sometime around 1975 or so. Or 78, I think. So when I was looking for a radio station in 81 and saw this station advertised in Provo, Utah, it was like bells were ringing. I said, maybe this is it. Now, Mormons are known for their homogeneity, their uniformity. At the same time, they go to every country in the world. There's something in Provo called the MTC Missionary Training Center, and they learn languages for 6 weeks before they go out. So they're cosmopolitan in that respect. And I'm telling you, if you haven't been to Utah, you've been to Utah.
I've been, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about. Zions, Bryce.
Yeah.
It's right on the way to Yellowstone.
Amazing.
Moab. It's just the most beautiful outdoor recreational facilities in the world. So all that. So anyway, our foot in the door was a radio station, put a down payment of a radio station in 1980. And then immediately we started the Festival of India. Festival of India went for 37 years up until COVID. Well, in 1995, I had this idea. Well, they have this really popular festival in India. They throw colors. We as devotees, we never went. When we were in India, we would hunker down inside the temple. We would not go out into the street.
Of course, yeah.
I found the whole thing distasteful, roguish.
Yes.
But when I started to put it together, Krishna consciousness in America, I said, look, I can jumpstart this festival in America. Hardly anyone's observing it. Nobody knows about it. So I can take the best part of America and I can take the best part of India. and merge those two and come up with something that might be quite appealing. In 1995, we had our first color festival, and we've been doing it ever since. And every year, the attendance has increased. We probably plateaued now about 20,000 on a good weekend when the weather's nice, and it's a 2-day event. So from the radio station, which gave me the chance to go from communicating to a broad audience 1 day a week in Los Angeles, went to a platform where I could communicate to a smaller audience 24 hours a day.
Wow.
Yes.
And I'm a former book distributor. One thing I remembered when I was distributing books is you'd go out 6 days a week and you'd be really pumped up. You'd really just be pumped up. And then on your day off, you feel horrible. Just feel horrible. You know, it was like a withdrawal. And you feel guilty. Like, you know, I'm so selfish. You know?
1 day.
1 day away from.
So how can I solve this problem? And a radio station did it because you're preaching 24 hours a day.
That's so
even
cool.
when you're sleeping. So
That's
it
incredible.
was a practical solution to the problem of, you know, whatever the things that come along with book distribution do. So I went from preaching in Los Angeles 1 hour a week to having the platform to go 24 hours a day. And then we had the Festival of India. And then, of course, the Color Festival really hit its stride about 2008. We had 3,000 people. 2009, we had 10,000 people. We started out with just one color throw, like 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then the crowds got bigger and bigger. And then, we do a noon color throw and then a 4 o'clock color throw. So we'd have a crowd come at noon, and then everyone would go away, and then we have another crowd that come at 4 o'clock and do the color throws. And then we went to a color throw every hour. The festival would start at 10 on Saturday, have a color throw at 11, one at 12, one at 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we went to a second day, and then we went to Sunday. And people say we weren't charging admission, but we were reported in 2012 by the local papers in the Salt Lake as having had 60,000 people, which I doubt. But it was a heck of a lot of people. And since we've been keeping track, if it's good weather, which is not normal in March, but we've been lucky, Krishna's taken care of us, happens more often than the average would seem to indicate, we get 20,000 people.
Wow.
And I'm on stage. So I would do all the permitting, deal with the police, deal with the fire chief, deal with the health department, rent the toilets, you know, and do all the setup, do all the takedown, do a lot of the physical work myself, all in order to exercise this talent I have for communicating with people.
Yes.
It all comes from communicating. Then consider the facility with beautiful Rajasthani-style temple with parrots and peacocks and llamas and all kinds of a menagerie there, a 200,000-gallon lake with beautiful koa fish. You've been there, you've visited.
Yeah.
So we get ever-increasing number of tourists. We have 2 billboards, northbound, southbound, and I-15.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah. So all the southbound traffic going to LA and San Diego and Vegas sees the billboard. All the northbound traffic from those places up to Yellowstone and Salt Lake sees the billboard. And it's just an easy on and off. It's like 3 miles on and off. You can even see the temple from the freeway. So we get people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And that's also another chance to greet people, to welcome them, to give them a tour, and to preach to them. In addition, it's a very popular place for school field trips. One recent year, the Salt Lake Tribune reported that we hosted over 3,000 kids for school field trips.
Wow.
And they would have lunch. They would get to halter the llamas and get their pictures taken with the parrots. Then that breaks the ice and makes them feel at home. And then we go upstairs and we give them a yoga class. We have kirtan. And then we have a Q&A session, which can last up to an hour and a half, just depends on how long the teachers allow it to go. And the questions are really good.
Yeah, I'm sure.
They're really, really young, inquiring minds, you know. Often after an hour of Q&A, at first you kind of coax them, get them going, But after an hour, there's often like 10 hands up, and they say, well, sorry that, you have to eat lunch and catch the bus, but, stay in touch, this is our email, and so on and so forth. So again, you can see how my original thesis was that if you find what you're good at, if it's communicating, if it's fixing cars, if it's writing poetry, if it's singing, if it's computer graphics, if it's cleaning, if it's making flower gardens, if it's dancing, if it's music, if you're lucky enough to find that niche for yourself, then you're completely off the mental platform the rest of your life. You can't even imagine not being a devotee, not doing what you're doing. And so Krishna has blessed me in that way.
I love that point, but I also think that you're saying communication is your forte, but also you're also managing and organizing.
All
so
to
is
that end.
All to that okay.
End. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people might be good at managing. They really get off at me. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
But you have to do it so much.
But I'm inspired to think of the end result, the gold, the plum, the fruit. You see,
yes,
all the lead
flower.
up to the chance to communicate.
Yeah, and the more trouble, the more grind that I've had to endure in order to put on a festival, the more manic, the more euphoric I am the day after the festival. My feet hardly touch the ground. Krishna reciprocates,
Right.
And believe me, we have challenges from police, from firemen, from challengers are always there. But the more difficult it is to successfully execute a festival, the more Krishna blesses you. That's another point too. We were comfortable in LA. We had our own house, we had our own vehicle, we had prasadam. We worked there for 10 years. I believe we did a good job. I believe the LA Temple would have been grateful to us. But at some point we realized that unless we move out of our comfort zone, we weren't going to see Krishna in our life as fully as we would otherwise. So it's important that if you believe in God, if you believe He's all-powerful, if you believe that He can do anything, then He will support you. When all the odds are against you, go to Utah, where there's no devotees, there's no money, there's no resources. There weren't even any Indians to speak in Utah. We went in 1980. There was no way that we could have ever succeeded.
Yes.
All the research and development tells you that if you go to somewhere where 90% of the people are one particular church, you have no chance. You even open a storefront, something as modest as that, it will be closed down after a few years for lack of support. And yet some or other, Krishna did what no one thought would be possible. Even our God brothers in Los Angeles, many of them supported us, but there were also many others, including the leadership at that time, vehemently, and you don't even want to know the details. This is the zonal Acharya time. My name was mud in Los Angeles. I was considered almost on the level of a traitor for thinking about going to from Los Angeles to open a temple in Utah.
Really?
Yeah. So the point is that others don't know what Krishna put in your heart. They may be well-meaning.
Yeah.
They may think they have your best interests at heart. They may think they're giving you a better advice. They may think they'd be saving you from falling in your face, maybe even getting so far out there that you bloop and you can't come back. All those were possibilities that went through my mind, but there was something deeper that Krishna put into my heart. That if you go, I will support you. And I will become more visible to you in your life. And that's certainly happened. I mean, oh my gosh, what an adventure. And it's still going on, it's still happening.
It's such a powerful lesson. It's such a powerful illustration of just living through your faith and allowing that to be the guiding force in your life. Yeah, it's just amazing when you talk about how everyone was doubting you, and even yourself, you had your own doubts. But what kept you going? What was it?
The strong desire to communicate. As you know, in a big temple like Los Angeles, give Bhagavatam class once a week. You give the Sunday feast lecture once a month. You have your radio show once an hour. It just wasn't enough. It was not enough,
Wow.
And so I wanted a place where I could preach. They asked Prabhupada one time, there are so many, especially when he went back to India, not so much when he came to America initially, but when he went back to India, they said, there are so many Christian temples in India. Why are you building ISKCON temples in India? There's so many. Why not just support the ones of that? Prabhupada said, every man wants to have their own child. Every man wants, no matter how many other parents there are and how many children, everyone wants to have their own child.
Yes.
So again, coming back to my original point, if you can do something which is you, if you can take charge of it, even, we talk about detachment and lack of ownership, but if you can own a service, that's the best thing. You're blessed beyond imagination, beyond compare. And so, Krishna put this dream in our heart to have our own project where we wouldn't have to discuss it, take it to the board. Tell me if I'm wrong. How many times, what does the word discourage mean? It means you have courage. You have a dream. Krishna planted a seed in your heart. You're all fired up. But by the time you present it to 10 members of the board, it's like, forget it. That's the meaning of the word discouragement. So we wanted to be someplace where we wouldn't have to get 10 people's approval. Most of those are ensconced in their comfort zone. They're not positively disposed towards getting out of the boat, even if it's an ISKCON boat. Sometimes you have to. ISKCON is meant to spread. It's not meant to be inward turned and insulated. So, Prabhupada gave the example also one time that if you're dancing on stage, you need to be free to do whatever you want, whatever the creative impulse leads you. Now, he says your parents, your grandparents, maybe some very conservative elements may be sitting in the crowd. As the performer, you have to put that out of your mind. You can't be thinking on stage, what will they think of this move? What will they think of this costume? What will they think of that? You have to totally block that out and do what you're prompted and what you're inspired to do, to be yourself and not to let anyone temper you or intimidate you or browbeat you. Yeah. So we wanted to go to some place where we wouldn't have to ask anybody's permission, where if we got the inspiration, we would just go ahead and do it.
It's amazing.
And it's been, honestly, I can't recommend that course of action highly enough.
Yeah. I feel your enthusiasm. You realize it, you've lived it. And it's a really powerful point about, not being so concerned about what others think of you. And that can be challenging sometimes in a spiritual community or in a movement, because there are, a lot of eyes. They may be well-wishing eyes.
And we're very opinionated. Right? When you look across ISKCON, we're really, really, really opinionated.
Extremely, yeah.
And that's a bucket of water, a lot of times. On the fire.
What would you say to someone who says maybe that Srila Prabhupada said, you will show your love by how you cooperate with each other. So the balance between like working in cooperation, but also going out and doing something of your own without having someone over you. Do you know what I'm saying?
Brajahari, is that his name? The mediator?
Brajabihari.
Brajabihari, He talked about this. I heard him in one presentation. We have the Pakora devotees, and then we have the pizza devotees. The Pakora devotees are traditionalists, hardline. They chant their rounds. They follow the principle every day. Yeah. There's no deviation, but they're very critical of innovation, generally speaking. And then you have the pizza devotees who are very innovative, very creative, very inspired. Prabhupada said, tax your brain. Prabhupada did as much as he could at his age in the time that he had. Doesn't mean that nothing else can be done after Prabhupada left the planet. When the parent teaches the children everything it can give, the parent endows and enriches the children to the best of the parent's ability, but then the parent does not want the child to be limited to what the parent taught them and to what they learned during that limited period of time.
Yes.
The parent wants the child to go and fly on their own.
Yes.
See what I'm saying? Like the nest, the feeds the nest, but the end result is for the little birds to get on the edge and then just launch themselves into air. So I refuse to be intimidated by the people that say Prabhupada didn't do this, or Prabhupada didn't say this, or Prabhupada didn't do that.
Yeah.
I respect them. They are the core, the backbone of our philosophy.
Yeah.
Every single one of them is going straight back home, back to Godhead. But don't tell me what I can do or what I can't do, because that's between me and Prabhupada. That's not your business.
Yes.
If I ask your advice, please do give it. But if I don't ask your advice, stick to your own business.
Yes.
Yes.
Wow. That's great. I feel whenever I meet devotees of your age who, were around during Srila Prabhupada's time, I always ask them about the 80s and how they survived that time of the, the zonal acharya time. Could you tell us a little bit about, after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, how did you feel that you were going to continue? And I know a part of it is that you went in like, I need to do something, and
I'll just
take responsibility.
I'll just give you an instance, which I think says a lot. I was president of Berkeley, and it was the appointed gurus and the zonal acharyas and all like that.
Yeah.
And we might as well say the name. Hansaduta came.
Yeah.
And he was a disruptive influence even while Prabhupada was on the planet. Prabhupada sent him to Ceylon because he would cause trouble wherever he went.
Wow.
Berkeley, Germany, England, he would just cause trouble. He was like Attila the Hun. Grass never grew after he'd been there. And so I don't know how it happened, but I'm doing Guru Puj, and he's there in person. And I'm doing Guru Puj to my godbrother. And not only that, and I've been the president for 3 years. We grew the temple from 20 devotees to 120 devotees. We became the #1 book distribution machine in all of America. The only way LA could beat us was on New Year's Eve. He would call me up, Rameshwar would call me up and say, "True, what were your book distribution totals for the marathon?" And he would find our totals were greater than theirs. And then we go door to door to the householders. He says, "Give a donation. We can't be #2 to Berkeley."
Oh, wow.
So he would find out what we did, and then he would have to go door to door and get donations in order to edge us out.
To me, yeah.
Yeah. And we acquired 9 houses up and down the street. We bought a 150-acre farm in Mendocino County. We had a Gurukul. We had the biggest Rath Yatra in ISKCON. In 1977, when I organized the Rath Yatra in Golden Gate, about 20,000 people came.
Wow.
And we were front page of the San Francisco Chronicle. So anyway, I've been there for 3 years. I think I'd done a fairly good job. And one of Hansaduta's disciples says to me later on, "I don't think you are doing the Guru Puj to Hansaduta with enough devotion."
Oh my God.
And I said, "Well, I offered the incense, I offered the flame, I offered the flower." He says, "Yeah, but it was the look in your eyes." And I thought, give me a break. Give me a break.
Yeah.
So anyway, I agree with you. It was a tough time, but we all got through it.
Yeah. Very complex. Very complex.
Wait, so he was there in person and you were doing the worship?
Yeah, with not enough devotion.
Right. Oh, gosh. Such an interesting time, that time.
Definitely. And I could see how maybe just being in that climate also, it's very natural that you wanted to kind of
Bust out.
go off and
Breathe.
and do something where you felt very free. Yeah.
Take a breath.
Yes. What would you say to younger devotees? Like, you've gone through so much of experience now that you told me you're 72, which is amazing.
77.
You're 77? Oh my goodness, 77. Okay, I'm
Wow.
sorry. Wow, 77?
I stopped doing color festivals in 13 color festivals in 3 states when COVID hit, and I was 72.
Okay. Wow, you're 77. That's amazing. You're in great shape, bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I was a 20-year-old, people would say, "You're in really bad health." But at 77, I'm actually quite chuffed because I look around at others, people that are 77.
Totally, yeah.
I'm doing okay.
Totally.
Yeah,
Yes.
totally.
Doing a few things
great
right, I
shape,
think.
Very energetic. And,
Yeah.
amazing.
What advice would you give to maybe your younger self? That's a good question, I think.
Advice I would give to my younger self.
Because you're 77 now, but now that you've gone through all this experience,
my younger self is still in there.
yeah, it's still in there.
In
Yeah,
an older body. Yeah. Oscar Wilde, I think, once said, he said, the tragedy of old age is not that we're old, but that we're still young.
Yeah.
I've just recently stumbled upon a new career. It probably happened, it happened about 4 or 5 years ago. I've been doing the Festival of Colors since 1995, probably done 100 festivals of colors that I've organized myself.
100.
And I, because it's a young audience, the best means to reach them is through rap music, rap songs. And I've had people like Jay Brave, Braxton, Kiyoshi, MC Yogi at our festivals, and they're very popular, but they're not quite as Krishna conscious as I'd like. I get them all to chant Hare Krishna, and the audience thinks they're devotees, but really, I felt the need for someone to give genuine Krishna consciousness through the rap medium, and not finding anybody. About 4 or 5 years ago, I just kind of made up a song, and then I tentatively rolled it out one time and got really good response from the young kids, and so that from that song came another one, and then another one, and another one. So now I have about 20 rap songs.
Wow.
And you do
You
them.
like to write rap songs, and you're rapping also.
The first rap song I did, we had one band on stage, and they had this beautiful refrain. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark and never dies. First time I heard that, it was Jai Krishna. He has a local Utah band.
Sure, yeah.
I couldn't get it out of my head. It was running around through my head for... So then I sat down one time. I got an app. It's like $2.99. It's called Rhymer's Block. So you paste whatever you want, your starting thing, and then you just touch any word, and it'll give you every word in the English language that rhymes with it.
Ah.
The rhyming dictionary.
Yeah. So this is the first rap song, and now I've got about 20, 25 more. When I look into your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark and never dies, yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual skies. From dust you come, to dust you go. It was not spoken of the soul. This body, like a set of clothes, wears out and gets disposed. A flame of light and love gives life to the machine. A candle never snuffs, subtle, sublime, unseen. For the soul, there's no beginning, ending, there's none, small in the atom, brighter than the sun. When I look in your eyes, I see a shining soul. When I look into your eyes, I see a spirit soul. I see a soul that's never born, a spark that never dies, yearns to fly back home, back to the spiritual skies. The inner soul continues when the outer body ends, like flame from wood, sparks ascending, transcending dark matter, blending with the sky, invisible to the naked eye. You cannot kill, nor can you die. You cannot burn, nor can you fry. The soul cannot be scorched by any blaze. No water can drown the spirit. No wind can make it fade. You cannot cut another, nor can you bleed. The soul is eternal, unborn, a seed, indivisible, indestructible, forever free from birth, death, old age, and disease. Yet howsoever turned or tossed, the soul can never itself exhaust. Seated in the heart, beating its drum, powering everyone. The soul's superior force lives on and runs its endless course in God's unlimited universes. As the cloud is seated on the air, so spirit supports the flesh. Take away the living force, it's just chemicals lying there, a corpse naked and bare, not a twitch or wiggle, not a subtle wink or giggle. Can't tickle it or puzzle it with a riddle. Deaf, blind, mute, dumb, numb, can't reward it, can't ignore it, can't restore it. Deader than a doornail, stiffer than a board. Only thing you return it, burn it, bury it, earth to earth, dust to dust, ash to ashes. Infirm body versus immortal soul. Learn the difference, conquer ignorance, make a spiritual choice, sing out, give voice, rejoice, make some noise for the spiritual force. And then I get the audience.
Oh my goodness, that was amazing. Wow. That was really good.
That was my first song.
Wow.
Now I've got like 20, 25 songs.
Do you perform it?
I was yesterday.
I know yesterday I noticed that you were doing some rhyming in the emceeing.
Yeah, and there's a music soundtrack behind him as well. And wherever possible, I have dancers. I can also get dancers who do interpretive dance. And,
oh, right.
With the lyrics, yeah.
And if I
that's
get
so
a
nice.
DJ, it's even better. DJ can, get the mood and provide some background music. So
Amazing.
But it's you performing these songs too. You're
Live.
the MC.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
So I feel like a 12-year-old. I'm just starting out with a whole new career.
That's
now,
incredible.
now I'm going to all these other
The
festivals.
lyrics
and-
are great. That was beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you can have a festival with prasadam, with lots of kirtan, with beautiful dance. You know, so many, yesterday at the Parsippany, there were so many beautiful dances and dramas.
Yeah.
What a community you have here. It's so impressive. But, you know, you can do all that and at the end of the day, not have had any preaching from the mouth,
Yes.
like this kind of preaching, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'd like to think that I supply that, you know, in a way that young people appreciate.
Totally.
And I'm not going to be around that long. So if there's some young third, fourth generation kids that think that's cool, and I can see out in the audience, there's some kids that like, whoa, what's going on here? You know, who's the old guy? You know, if I can plant some seeds in some upcoming generations and they can take this to heart, then this will be another level of preaching going forward.
Yeah. It's really special just to even show younger people that this is something that they can do. That it's a possibility.
If you can do it at my age,
to
well,
be
you can
creative.
definitely do it at 12. You know, I mean, you know, you got 70 years of creative output ahead of you, and it's certainly needed. It's a niche which is unfulfilled right now.
Yes. Yeah.
There's a purport that Prabhupada gives in the Krishna book about Mother Yashoda, and she's churning butter, and there's any number of songs by Vidyapati, Chandidas, and you know, and others, and even back then, there are any number of songs written by great realized saints and sages, and we're encouraged to just parrot and repeat them, because in doing so, we'll be pulled up by our bootstraps. But then there's a very real element of making it yours, of
Yes.
owning it.
Yeah.
This is what Mother Yashoda is doing. She's not quoting other great saints and sages. She's making up her own songs based on her own experience and her own level of realization. And she's making, and it's, Krishna's gone. He's gone to Mathura, he's gone to Dwarka. He's never going to come back to Vrindavan, you know, on one level. So this is the Yashoda's way of keeping Krishna close, composing her own songs, and they may not be with all the poetic embellishments and the literary expertise, but they're hers. This is how she brings Krishna into our heart. And when I read this, it really lighted a fire in me.
Yeah.
You know, you know, it's great to learn the songs of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, Vidyapati Chandi, but it's also very important to compose your own poetry and to write your own writings, so that you know, Krishna is yours. He's your child. He's your baby.
Yeah.
I love
And
that.
every devotee, I think, should do that.
To kind of make Krishna consciousness your own.
Yeah, to claim it.
To claim it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, I just think about, like, when you talked about how a 12-year-old has decades of creative potential. Imagine also just our movement. If everyone felt more encouraged to express their creativity, what would come from that?
I was in Mayapur in 1977. This is March, and Prabhupada was going to depart in November, so he only had about 6 months on the planet. And he was already ill. You could see that from the Vyasa-san. I forget what the verse was, what the topic was, but right in the middle of the Bhagavatam class, and there were 700 young devotees in the Lotus building at that time.
Wow.
Right in the middle of the Bhagavatam class, he stopped. And he just said, it wasn't apropos of anything he was talking about or anything, just like out of the blue. And he said, I'm an old man. He said, I can go at any time. But you, each one of you has 50 years at least ahead of you. Prabhupada started crying. And you could see how he was transcendently envious of us. We had something he didn't have, which was time. But too often, ISKCON, I mean, like I said, if your guru or your temple authority tells you to do something that's not in keeping with your nature, you can do it. And over time, you'll actually get to like it. That's a fact. There's no doubting that. So go ahead and, be compliant. But at the same time, if you should get the opportunity to act according to your own aptitude and your own temperament, then those 50 years, every single hour of every day is going to be enriching, refreshing, enlivening. You're never going to get old. And even when you reach like my age, you're still going to have vistas ahead of you. You're still going to feel like however wonderful it's been, it's the best is yet to come.
Really powerful to hear you say that, Prabhu. Yeah, just to have that outlook toward the future, and I don't know, approaching what is unlimited.
Look at Krishna. He's fresh. He's youthful. He works differently in different seasons. It's not that Krishna says, "This is it, and there's nothing beyond this. You must remain forever confined and chained to these few principles or these few precepts or these few techniques." Krishna's got that twinkle in his eye. He's a mischievous boy. And he never tells us in advance what he's got in mind. We have to reach out, even in the darkness, even when things are uncertain. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We still have to have the boldness to do things, to attempt things on Krishna's behalf. And then the skeptic will say, well, what if you got it wrong? What if it's your ego and it's not actually a dream that Krishna planted on you? Krishna will find you. You may have gone off course, but he knows where you are. He knows how to find you, and he knows how to get you back on course. But what Krishna can't work with is someone who doesn't trust him, who's not bold enough in the course of proclaiming his glories. So we have to have that boldness and that willingness to make mistakes, even if that should be the case. Trusting that Krishna knows what we're doing and he knows how to get us to where we need to be.
Yes.
Called it the GPS, God's positioning system.
Love it.
Prabhu, you were one of the first people to spread Krishna consciousness in Australia. Is that right?
I met devotees in Australia.
You met devotees in Australia, right? But you're American, but you were in Australia at the time.
I was in America during the time of the Vietnam War, civil rights. America was divided in so many ways, the doves and the hawks and the civil rights proponents and the civil rights antagonists. It was a very divided time. Not as divided as it is now, but it was divided, somewhat reminiscent. Now it's somewhat reminiscent. So I thought, and I went to the Pentagon, and I burned my draft card, and I was arrested, and all that stuff. And at one point, I just decided, I don't want to be here. I just don't want to be here for the time being. So I ended up being out of the country for 8 years. I left America in 1967, and Prabhupada had not yet come there, or if he'd come, movement hadn't. So I didn't meet any devotees in America because I left before the movement got going. I went to England, I went to the Canary Islands, I spent 6 months in Paris working against the war in Vietnam as an insoumis. Insoumis is the French word for a draft resistor.
Oh, wow.
And then I spent some time in Greece with a very wealthy family that I'd met in Paris, a wealthy American family. And then from Greece, I went overland to India, which you haven't been able to do since. But in 1969, you could actually drive to India through Turkey and Iran and Afghanistan and Pakistan, which I did. I spent about 3 months in India in 1969, but there wasn't the interconnectivity there is now. Now you can book your whole trip. You can go to this ashram. You can take these courses. You can have that. You can schedule it all in advance. But in those days it was just hit or miss.
Yeah.
And I don't think they've even published the Lonely Planet in those days as a resource facility.
Right.
So I didn't really make any meaningful connection during my first 3 months in India. That I ran out of money. And the closest place that I could go to make money would have been Australia. So without any spiritual expectations, I just went to Australia. I had a job on a construction site as what they call a brickies laborer. And my wife, who I was just living with at that time, later on to be by Bobby, she was working as a waitress. And you can imagine my surprise one day after work. I'm coming home on the train from North Sydney, being spewed out of the into the street, downtown Sydney on George Street, and a little flash of color catches my eye, and I look, and there's an American dressed in a dhoti and a kurta with a shaven head and tilak on, and he's holding up a copy of Back to Godhead magazine. That was Upendra.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I went up to talk to him, and he said, love of God is there. It's there. It's not an artificial imposition. It's a seed within everyone's heart. But unfortunately, America, with all its external materialistic technology, obscures the spiritual technology of awakening the soul and re-engaging the love of God. And he said, if you want to practice the technology of ancient India to get in touch with your spiritual self, then just chant. And I remember it's so cute because it was a winter's evening. The sun was setting, and we were in the downtown financial district. So I remember the men in the gray flannel suits. Except for him, there was hardly any color there, and we were pressed up against the side of a building, and all these businessmen were passing. So he said he would, as the ear would pass, he would say, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. He was giving me a graphic demonstration of how to plant and water, actually the seeds there, but how to water the seed.
Wow.
And he challenged me. He said, I'll make you a bet. I bet you can't chant in a systematic way Hare Krishna for 5 minutes a day and not feel closer to God than you've ever felt before. That was his challenge. He threw down the glove.
Beautiful.
I said, well, how can I not? I mean, I'd been unconvinced. I guess I would call myself an agnostic.
Right.
If you lived in my parents' house in Pennsylvania, you would have had to go to church every day. That was required.
Every day?
No, sorry, every Sunday.
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday. Yeah. We belonged to a little church called St. Michael's of the Valley in Rector, Pennsylvania. And then when I went away to prep school, even on the prep school level, we had to go to chapel every morning on the way to classes. And there was a little homily or a Bach concerto or something. And then Sundays, we had all the Ivy League chaplains, Harvey Price from Harvard and Reverend Coffin from Yale. We were on the route. So I had heard a lot of preaching, and yet I remained indifferent, unconvinced. But when I met that devotee, and I'm not sure what it was, it might have been because of the devotee was following the principles, no illicit sex, no gambling, no talk. So his words had more potency. I remember one of our Episcopal priests had to go into rehab for alcoholism. As an example, Episcopalian priests are not known for their high level of morality. They smoke, they drink, they do all this stuff. So I might have heard the same words, God is a person, and I might have heard them, but they hadn't the potency. But when Upendra told me these same things, it really resonated.
Wow.
And I remember walking around, God is a person, God is a person. And I did chant. I chanted Hare Krishna. I got some beads, strung them together, and I chanted every day for a week. And honestly, I had to admit myself that I was more keen on knowing God than I had ever been throughout all of my previous experiences.
Wow. And then how did you get your wife to also be a part? Because you're still married to her, and
resistant. At first, she
was
very
resistant. And she's Australian, right?
No, she's English.
Oh, she's English.
Yeah,
okay.
we just met. We met in Singapore as fellow travelers, and then we bumped into each other again in Darwin.
Wow. Oh, wow.
And then we
Darwin.
Darwin, yeah,
Oh
that's
my
where
gosh.
we both landed.
Wow.
She came one way, and I came another way, and we just happened. I spent 6 weeks in Indonesia and Bali, and she came on a ship. She hitchhiked literally on a ship, which is a novel concept. and we just happened to arrive in Darwin the same day and bump into each other again.
Wow.
That's really incredible.
Yeah, it was
when
amazing.
you think in terms of probability and things
Very
like that,
little,
you
very
see
low
some
probability.
arrangement there.
Yeah. And
That's
during that
amazing.
whole 6 weeks I was in Indonesia, I was thinking, I met such a nice girl, and I was trying to be cool, blasé. I didn't even know her last name.
Right.
I knew she was Christine from England. That's all I knew. And I was just thinking, you idiot, you didn't even find out her last name. You have no way of ever getting in touch with her. Well, that's
Oh
it.
my
You'll never see her again. And then no sooner I had landed, I flew from Portuguese Tumir to Darwin, and I was literally on the way from the airport to the bus station, and then I'm passing this outdoor cafe, and I hear this, "Hello there." And I thought, Krishna, thank you.
Yeah.
second chance, so I never let her go after that.
Wow.
How many years has it been?
We've been married 54 years.
Wow, that's amazing.
Incredible.
What's your secret
And
to it?
honestly,
Yeah, I knew that was coming.
Honestly,
I'm wondering too.
I'll tell you, this interview's, you've been asking me questions, you've been getting answers from me, true.
Yeah.
But honestly, she's the secret to my success.
Wow.
We wouldn't be where we are without my better half, Bobby. She's amazing.
Tell us
Our
more.
respects to her.
Yeah, our respects to her if you're listening. Tell us more about what are your secrets for like a successful marriage?
Be both devotees. It's worth it. It's worth it to spend the time and to feel each other out, metaphorically speaking, of course, to make sure that you've actually got a genuine devotee there. And there's a difference between, men and women who are in Krishna consciousness in order to get a good spouse, and then they want to because people in Krishna consciousness tend to be of good character, they have good values, they work hard, they're going to be successful. So it's, it makes sense from a material point of view to look for your spouse in the devotee community. But then all too often we leave and we get caught up in raising a family and career, and then temple hardly ever sees you or recognizes you after that. That's a pretty common story.
Yeah.
So all I can say is, make sure it's someone who really has as their priority, they want to serve Krishna. You may have a career, you may have a family, of course, but there's a difference between those who are using Krishna, just making themselves feel good about then going ahead and pursuing material life, and those who are, genuinely have Krishna first place in their life. We're meant to be used by Krishna. We're not meant to use Krishna for our own purposes. And most people's motives are not that difficult to discern, if you're honest. If that's your motive, then you won't ask these questions. You won't be looking with that lens. But if your motive is to put Krishna first place in your life, then you'll recognize a kindred soul. You'll recognize a spouse who wants the same thing. And honestly, Bobby and I, we both put Krishna first place in our life. We still have selfish motives. We're not pure or anything like that. But I can say that I don't want to do anything other than to please Krishna. I don't want to let my actions be guided by any other motive. And with us both the same priority, and we have differences. We're actually both very strong personalities. Sometimes you hear us argue, you think, wow, they've been together for 54 years. I don't think they're going to be together for the next 54 seconds. But we're the same. We're just like two sides of the same thing. We both want to serve Krishna, and so that's what makes it work.
No, sorry, continue the thought.
Well, the people that have the strongest ties are often people that have been in the service, Air Force, Marines, military. Even after being separated for like 30 years, they come together, they meet each other, they have a reunion. It's just like they're never left. They're like brothers.
Yeah.
I went back to Australia in 2012. After 40 years, they brought me back for the 40th anniversary of the installation of Radha Gopinath. And I hadn't seen these devotees forever. And it was just like yesterday. Connection was still right there.
Wow.
So if you want to really be close to your spouse, make sure you consecrate your life with service, because there's no other element that molds you together, that merges you together, than service to the Lord.
Wow, that's so amazing. I love that. 54 years. What's your favorite thing about your wife?
She never stops. She never stops. She just goes and goes, and then she goes to bed about 8 o'clock at night, and she's gone. She's gone. Sometimes, you like to meet with your spouse at the end of the day.
Sure.
How did your day go and all like that?
Yeah.
On the few times I've wandered into her room and said, I get like 2 words out of my mouth, like, how did your day? Get out. I'm tired. I have to go to sleep.
Yeah. Already fully,
Like cuts you off at the knees.
Everything's been expended. Yeah.
I mean, she gives everything to Krishna. She gives everything. And of course, you visited our property. It's been a few years, but there's constant improvements. There's constant improvements. Come back and see just, what all has been done since the last time you were there.
Our last time was like
come and they're enchanted. They're enchanted with the landscaping, the water features, the animals, the gardens. We have organic gardens. It's a real nice spot.
You should go, Dina.
I'm really eager.
We should go together.
I've always wondered about the center there. Yeah, we should go together. Road trip, and
bring it on.
Yeah.
We'd love
Thank
to
you for the
host it.
invitation.
We'd love to host
Dina
it.
has one kid. I have 3 kids, so the kids would love it.
Kids love it, and you can go to Moab while you're there. You can go to, we have a secret spot. It's not world known at all. It's known basically to the locals. It's called the Diamond Fork Hot Springs. It's only 20 miles away. It's a 2-mile hike through some of the most beautiful woods that you've ever seen, and then you arrive at the hot springs. There's a little waterfall. You could actually climb up behind the waterfall and stick your head through it.
Wow.
And get your picture taken. And then the pools next to the waterfall are nice and cool. And then the ones further are hot. And so you can regulate your temperature by moving from hot to cold and cold to hot. Honestly, I've never seen a place like this. It's magic, and it's our little secret. And so everybody that visits, as well as going to the big name places like Zion's and Bryce and Moab, you have to spend a half a day at our local hot springs as well.
Sounds amazing. Sounds totally out of this world, that place. And something I wanted to ask you, Prabhu, the radio station is still fully operational today, isn't it?
It's interesting, too, because it was originally just a AM day timer. After sunset, you have to cut the power from 1,000 watts to 333 watts. It does go 24 hours a day, but it would only cover that 30, 40-mile radius called Utah Valley. However, with advances of technology now, if you just get an app for your phone, like Simple App, which is free, you can listen to KHQN from anywhere in the world.
Yeah. Amazing. There's something so... I was just always very intrigued. My friend, Dave Avan, he's a big fan of, just listening to radio stations from all around. It's a hobby of his. And he came in contact with the Spanish Fork station, and he loves it. And it's just such a powerful medium for communication. I was just, curious what it's like now, the radio station.
I used to, when I was in LA, and I knew that we were going to get a radio station at some point in time, I took advantage of the fact of so many travelers passing through LA and so much talent there that we started doing programming. And originally it was on cassettes. Amala Bhakti has been living in LA for years.
Yes.
Not only did all his Krishna book readings, but we would borrow his wonderful voice for the dramas. My wife would do the soundtracks.
Really?
And Yashoda Mai was, I think she's still in the area. She has a beautiful voice. Many devotees have passed on, like Srinath. Pushkar used to be a regular member. Nirantar used to come on. And when Radhanath Swami visited us a few years, we rented an auditorium in the Salt Lake Library, and he addressed about 400 people. First thing he said was, that he had shared in an interview format through 2 or 3 different sessions all that information with me in the studio in Los Angeles about 5 or 6 years before Bhaktitirtha Swami insisted on his deathbed that he tell the story. And when Bhaktitirtha Maharaj, as his last wish, asked Radhanath Swami to tell the story of his pre-Krishna consciousness, Radhanath thought, well, that'll be easy because I already told all that to Caru.
Wow.
Yeah, we have an interview with I forget his name now. He was a best friend of Prabhupada. He was the mayor of Vrindavan. I have 4 interviews with him talking about Prabhupada and his sweet relationship with Prabhupada before he went to America. Forget his name. Vishwanath Goswami, I think his name was.
Vishwambar Goswami?
Yeah.
From Radha Raman?
I don't know if he was one of the priests of Radha Raman, but he was the mayor of Vrindavan for many years.
Mayor of Vrindavan. Oh, I never heard that.
Yeah, just like
he came to.
I would get him in my studio just like here, and I interview him. And
Wow.
Then after the cassettes, we would digitalize them. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of really good. The Mahabharata, we had all kinds of actors, and people would come into our studio. We did like 54 half-hour sections of the Mahabharata.
Wow.
Which you can still hear on Radio Krishna. Madhu Pandit, the old Radio Ram.
Oh, I've
Radio
heard those
Ram.
tapes.
Yeah,
I've heard those
yeah.
tapes. Very interesting.
This is J.B. Hunter. When you want to buy that new house, just come into Big Bang Constructions. We'll get all the elements. We'll get it, put it all, pile it up on the plot of land that you bought, and then we'll add our secret ingredient invented by the Nobel people. And it's called dynamite. And we'll blow it up. And if you don't get the house you exactly want with the right colors and the right shade and the right plumbing and the right configuration, well, our promise is we'll go on blowing, and we'll keep blowing until you get just the house you want. So come down to Big Bang Constructions and ask for J.B. Hunter.
So good. A lot of humor in those. A lot of humor, and also
Madhu Pandit was, the guy was just a genius.
Wait, when you said it's still functioning, it's still
the radio station, right? You can still tune in if you're there in
Yeah.
Spanish.
but it's like it's not live, right? There's some kind of
it's all pre-programmed.
Pre-programmed,
It's
okay.
digitalized,
okay.
Is there
and
still
you've done
facility
that?
to do live shows?
Yeah, no, anytime you like,
Yeah?
you can just jump in. There's a microphone there. You just throw a switch and you can go live.
Oh, that's so exciting.
That's so
So
neat.
great.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like this podcast, but from way before, You're doing interviews and all kinds of things, right?
I did. Yeah, I haven't done a lot live in Utah, but I did tons and tons of stuff in LA.
Yeah. Oh, in LA, yes. What how do you stay so positive? That's something that comes, I've known you, Prabhu, for many years. I came to Utah in, I think, 2007. You flew me, if you remember, for Kirtan at the Holy Festival.
I remember that very well.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was my first experience of you. And but something that really touched me was like your positivity. Where does that come from? And tell us more how we can kind of be more positive, because I find myself being like, always thinking like in like a pessimistic way.
I think it's important to have, and we talk a lot about devotee care and keeping devotees.
Yeah.
We definitely don't want people to go out the back door. That's a given.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to have lots of people coming in the front door, no matter what. No matter what. That's what keeps you young. I talked about other school tours. You can't host 3,000 kids, who are elementary or junior high or medium school level or high school level a year without staying young. Because you have to communicate with them. You have to know what. When I do the rap songs, the kids are like looking at each other like, "This is cool." And they start going. They're like, this. I'm going to take a closer look at these Hare Krishnas. This is like cool stuff. So it actually keeps you young to have as many people coming in the front door as possible. When you have a static situation where it's the same old people every Sunday, the same people giving class, the lack of visitors during the week, then it just sets a certain mood that you can't be immune from. You've got to be affected by it. Yeah. So above all, we have to have a lot of traffic, in my opinion. We have to have a lot of people coming. And building temples is a big step in the right direction. When we came to Utah, there were no resources, there was no facility, there were no donors. We had hardly any money ourselves, but I knew we had to build a temple. Whatever the cost was, we had to build a temple, because that's when you get people's attention.
Yeah.
It's like hitting them between the eyes with a 2x4. Hello, we're here. And as long as you're in a rented place or a second-class facility or a rundown facility or an apartment building that's converted into an old church, people aren't going to listen to you with attention. The whole reason why you want to upgrade your buildings is so when you talk to people, they will listen. The quality of their listening will improve. And that's important for me as a communicator. I can't stand not for people to take me seriously. I can't stand it. I will do whatever it takes. I will move heaven and earth. I would rather die than to have people minimize me or be indifferent when I'm speaking to them, And so building a temple wasn't optional. It was absolutely essential. And we spent it opened in, Spanish Fork Temple opened in 2001. Things weren't as expensive then as they are now, but it cost us about $1.2 million to build that temple. And in the 4 years since it's been, that expenditure has come back 100 times.
Wow.
100 times. So I say, doesn't matter what sacrifice, it doesn't matter what the amount is, the dollar amount is. Once you get that brand new built from the ground up temple, it's gonna pay for itself many, many times over. And you're not gonna be pessimistic anymore. You're gonna see all those people coming in, and you're gonna be on fire. You know, you won't have time. You won't be able to afford the luxury of being pessimistic, because there's too many people that need your input. They need what you have to offer. So I would say build a temple by all means, and then have lots of festivals, lots of preaching. We have to. If we're going to be a movement that makes a difference, we have to deal in massive numbers of people. It's fine. Boil the milk, take care of devotees. Yeah. I agree to all that, but my passion comes from spreading it, spreading it. You know, I like to tell people, I like the math. I like the math. You can often pour into somebody. Let's say a Westerner comes to the temple, they're interested. Yeah. They ask a few questions. Seems like there's some potential there. So then you start concentrating, you start focusing on people. You start spending an hour with them or 2 hours with them, going out of your way to greet them and to make them. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to take that person from 0 to 100 through special attention, special mentorship. Sometimes they just leave. Sometimes they just say, thank you very much, but now I'm interested in this guru, or I'm going to pursue this, or I'll become an impersonalist. And sometimes there's almost nothing to show for all that time. Yeah. But doesn't mean we don't do it. But Prabhupada said, to make a devotee, you open your wrists. Practically speaking, you bleed. You know, all our money is meant to, that, like whatever you spent on Rath Yatra yesterday, it's to make a couple of devotees. You know, we have to do it. However, I get enthused with this math. Rather than trying to make one person take 100 steps, I get fired up by 10,000 people taking one step. Do the multiplication. Right. I like it. I like it. And I'll never be disappointed, because I'm not expecting them to become pure devotees. I'm not expecting them to become initiated, hopefully, and almost certainly some of them will be. But that's not my job. My job, based on my strengths and my passion, is to give as many people as possible a very positive first-time experience of Krishna consciousness. That's why I'm fired up.
Do you think it depends, the sharing Krishna consciousness, does it depend on external things?
To some extent.
As far as dress or the way we speak or music or things like that? Well, we
talked about architecture. We talked about ecstatic festivals. You have to get the right entertainment, the right dancers. You have to do this right level. So I had a conversation recently with a temple. I went to the Rath Yatra, and the person in charge there confided in me. She said, a few years ago, we used to have some Bollywood dance. And then there were some critics that said, you shouldn't have Bollywood dance. So we stopped it. But now the crowd is only a fraction of what it used to be. I said, well, why don't you get the Bollywood dance back? You're going to go do all this advertising, all this marketing, all this arrangement. Wouldn't you rather than have 5,000 people present than 500 people? Is that so difficult to understand? And there's clean Bollywood. It doesn't have to be, just monitor. I said, why don't you bring the Bollywood dance back? I don't know. It seems pretty simple to me. I'd rather be on stage talking to 5,000 people than 500 people.
Right.
You know?
To be able to bring them in so you can also, speak to them between the
Well, would you
dancing.
rather have them at home watching TV during that same period of time?
Right.
Right.
Means to
Would
an
you
end
rather
in
have
a
them
way.
doing Bollywood dance,
Yes.
and eating prasadam? And it's not all Bollywood dance. It's just a concession. It's just a concession. You have kirtan, you have prasadam, you have preaching, you have me on stage preaching. So which is the win? To have them not come at all, or to have them come and have the Bollywood your hook, but also give them a full menu of Krishna consciousness?
Right.
Yes.
It doesn't seem to me to be a very difficult question to answer, but that's what
I mean,
like
people
the
would have a
simplicity of
problem. No,
that.
but people would have a problem with that. Like
Oh,
the critics.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely, And then you get less and less people, and then the enthusiasm wanes, and you find it harder to get volunteers and harder to raise your fund, and you're in a spiral. You're in a tailspin. Do what you have to do to get the people, within reason.
That's the key, I think.
Be
That's
creative.
the key, right?
Be creative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get the people. That's what keeps the passion alive.
I'm wondering, Prabhu, you were talking about how, you like to see many, many people take one step, A lot of the time we hear this parlance of making devotees and things like that. I was wondering for you, what do you view as kind of like a success or a victory? And in terms of people feeling belonging at all different levels of involvement.
Great question.
We came to Utah in 1980, bought property and made a commitment, and there were no devotees there. It was Mormons, 90% Mormons. They used to have a T-shirt in LA in the 80s that said, "Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you might be in Utah." So I had to make a decision. Is nobody a devotee, or is everybody a devotee? So we chose door number 2. It worked out pretty well. So we have to take that attitude that I don't have to make devotees. Everybody's a devotee. I know a doctor. He's a Mormon. He gives 10% faithfully to the Mormon Church. He goes on missions of mercy to Africa all the time. His name is Dr. Frampton. He's given like $20,000 to the temple.
Wow.
I mean, he's done more than some devotees I can think of in a whole lifetime.
Yeah.
He does, by writing a check that's just pocket change for him. He's done more than many devotees. The LDS Church gave us $25,000 to help us build the temple. Who's to judge? Who am I to say you're a devotee and you're not a devotee?
Right.
If they do some really outrageous, offensive behavior, then I'll say, okay, it's not a devotee. But otherwise, I should approach everybody like a devotee. It'll work better. We'll get a lot more mileage out of it.
That's amazing.
That's the first thing I heard when I met Upendra in 1969. He said, devotional service is a seed within everyone's heart. He didn't say some people's heart. He said everyone's heart. So
Right.
that basically the first message I heard from the first devotee was that everybody's a devotee. And that works well. That's a good motto. It really works.
I like what you said about within reason, using the example of the Bollywood, music and all that stuff. There are people who say that, we have to dress a certain way, or we have to not dress a certain way, or we have to speak a certain way. When you speak at your Sunday feast, I know you really put a lot of thought into, the PowerPoint and all that stuff. What are some principles that you use for when you're speaking to a very wide audience?
First of all, I don't take my audience for granted. I don't speak off the top of my head unless Prabhupada said, if you can prepare, it's good.
Yeah.
You should be ready to speak extempore, which we try to be. This is all extempore today. So,
Yeah.
Yes.
That's
we can do it,
Yeah.
But if possible, prepare. And I like to think that preparing gives respect to your audience. There are so many older devotees that just speak something. And we had a Prabhupada disciple, no names mentioned, up in Salt Lake City, who just rambled on for an hour and a half about Prabhupada. Now, there's people coming for the first time.
Yes.
I mean, what has that got to do with them?
Yeah.
Give them something like an hors d'oeuvre, something to whet their appetite, something. Especially they're dealing with so many challenges every day,
Yeah.
on every level. It's so tough out there. in the workplace, in the political arena, even in the religious arena. Give them something to make their life better. Give them some tools that they can use so they can face Monday morning. Then they'll want to hear about Prabhupada. Then they'll want to hear about Narottam Das or Rupa Goswami and all like this stuff, you know. But we get so turned inward, you know.
Yes.
Yeah.
We get so turned inward, we forget about the greater society of which we're a part. These things don't necessarily affect us. But it doesn't mean that they're not affecting most people. And if we want people to cross over, to transition from the devotion, from the self-centered to the God-centered, we have to bridge. You know, we have to throw them a bone or two. And so I prepare all of my talks. I accompany them with a PowerPoint. I'm supposed to give the talk. Tune in at 5 o'clock today. I'm going to give a talk for the Sunday Temple, for the Sunday Feast.
Yeah.
When I know I've given a talk, I tell you, I can't tell you how I feel like I've hit a home run when after the talk, someone comes up to me and says either of a couple of different things. How did you know I was coming today?
Like you spoke to me. You spoke to me.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My heart just goes pitter patter. Oh my God. Or another thing people might say is, how did you know I was going through that in my life?
Wow.
Well, I didn't, but everybody's going through it. You know, people think they're unique. You know, they believe you're speaking to them personally, that you picked them out of the crowd. But really, you know, what any individual's going through, we're all pretty much going through it. But that's not what they perceive. They perceive that I'm speaking to them, which is a win, I think.
Totally.
Definitely.
Totally.
Yeah. Feel that
Yeah.
you're speaking to their heart.
Exactly. The PowerPoint is there because every corporate meeting, every class is accompanied with the PowerPoint. That's what they're used to. I stand up. How many times in your corporate life, or all do you is someone addressing a crowd by sitting down? I stand up. I have a podium. I have a PowerPoint, and I speak. Lately, I've honored this more in the breach than the observance. But people tell me it's okay, true. As long as you're telling stories, you can go longer. But I believe the ideal talk is not more than half an hour.
Right.
Especially on a Sunday feast. If you're having a Zoom call with devotees or a class during the week, sure, go an hour, whatever you want to do. Talk about Prabhupada, talk about Rupa Goswami, and make it as, in-house, as you want. But please, for the Sunday feast, make it seeker friendly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Make it relevant.
Totally.
Please.
Yeah.
We're really missing a lot when we don't craft our worship services for the first time comers. And some of the temples, it's been so long since you've had any new people that you just forgotten about it. You haven't even given it a thought for a decade or more.
And there may even be cases.
And sometimes they say, are there any new people? And there's like two people raise their hand. Really? Why did you come? It's like, what brings you here? I mean, I can't even imagine why do you want to come here? I'm a devotee,
And that gives them a feeling
I haven't even given you a thought for more than a decade,
Right.
Yeah.
You might get some of that tonight, full disclosure.
But, it seems to me that there are even sometimes communities where they do want new people and they don't understand why there aren't new people.
Yes. Oh, great
that
point.
That side of it too, where it's like, sometimes I think it can be like, oh, we're good the way we are. We don't really need, but then others, they may want new people and they just struggle to even.
And when a new person shows up, they're so shocked,
Like, why are you?
They treat them like like an alien from outer space or something,
Yeah. I like what you said about that everyone's going through the same things more or less, like being a part of the, the tough workplace or the tough religious arena and all that stuff. And to address those points is so important because it has to do with everyone. Everyone is going through that. But if you're pinpoint, and then you get people coming up to you and saying, you address something that I was going through, but you're addressing some very wide, the main principles, right? Birth, death, old age, and disease. Everyone's going through some issues.
Our overriding theme is that you make the most spiritual advancement during the tough times.
Yeah.
It's okay to praise God, give honor, give respect to God when things are going your way. That's easy. Anyone can do that. But how many people lose it? How many people freak out? How many people discouraged when things aren't going their way? They're not getting what they're on their timetable. So our message is that when unfair things happen, when things happen that you don't understand, that's when you have to knuckle down. That's when God is seeing what you're made out of. So if you keep a smile, keep a good attitude, keep being good to people, keep going to the temple. People say, well, I can't go to the temple because there's so much happening in my life. That's when you have to pass the test and go to the temple. It's never more important to go to the temple when you have challenges in your life. That's when you have to give it to Krishna. It's beyond your power to deal with. It's beyond your capacity to solve it. And so it's never more important to go to Krishna, to chant Hare Krishna, to keep faith in Krishna, to believe in Krishna, to trust Krishna, than when things are going bad. So that's where we start. What do you do when things are going bad? You lost a loved one. There's politics at work. There's war in the Ukraine. There's the situation in Gaza. When everything seems impossible, when it seems too much, that's a golden opportunity. If you have that background in Krishna consciousness, that's when you have to dig in your heels, reach down and say, Krishna, I believe you're still on the throne. You've still got me in the palm of your hands. Though I don't see a way, I believe you have a way. I'm going to trust you. Wow. I don't understand, but I believe that you have a greater purpose. And I'm going to keep a good attitude. I'm going to do my part and believe in you. That's our message. And everybody needs to hear that. Yeah. Because things are not happy nowadays from the material point of view.
Yeah,
for sure.
It's full of challenges. It's full of dark things. And this is the message that's going to hearten people. It's going to buck people up. It's going to give them hope for the future. That actually never is God more present than when you think he's least present. That's the paradox.
Wow. Yes. When you were saying all of that, I was just going to say, how did you know I was going to be here?
Yes. Jai. Very nice.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful.
There's so much I want to, I feel, I feel when you, I know you mostly address you like to address the newcomers, but whenever you come across addressing like a very inward crowd, like devotees, what do you focus on, or what do you kind of try to communicate at that point? Because this podcast is a very much an inward crowd, but there's like so much that people can use for spreading Krishna consciousness and things. But what would you say for those devotees who've been around, 20, 30 years? What do you try to communicate there?
If things are getting stale and you're having, you're having trouble keeping your, the earlier, if someone new comes to the temple, or someone's just started on the path and they're chanting and dancing and everything, and you're standing there as a 30-year-old devotee and you're thinking, what are they so excited about? You got a problem.
Yeah. Good point. Great point. Like you're looking at, check out this guy. Right.
Yeah. So what do you do to revive the gusto? Well, you just have to remember that every day is a miracle. The fact that I get up in the morning and see the light of the day, that's a big thing.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. God created this day. This is a day the Lord has made. And there's so many opportunities. For me, I tell you this, you might think it's a little weird, but for me, picking up trash is a very exciting thing. How many times you see people walk past a piece of trash on the temple property and think, well, I didn't put it there, I don't have to pick it up. But I'm thinking, yeah, somebody else put it there, but if I pick it up, Krishna's going to see that I'm doing what others are not willing to do. Where others walk past and they don't see the trash, I'm seeing the trash, and I know that Krishna's watching me pick up that piece of trash and put it in the receptacle where it should be. That can jazz me up. That can pump me up, because I know that Krishna's watching. And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It doesn't have to be like going off from Los Angeles to Utah to starting a temple. It can be little acts of overcoming, little acts of getting out of your comfort zone. Maybe you're not into the cold shower thing, but you can take 30 seconds at the end to turn the cold water on. That might be the start of a turnaround, a transition. That's a big thing, you know. Or maybe you haven't been chanting 16 rounds. Maybe you need to get back and do the full number of rounds. Or maybe your quality of chanting hasn't been. So maybe you can just pay a little bit more attention to have a better quality rounds, you know. Or honoring prasadam, you know, honoring prasadam instead of just eating it. Maybe you've just been eating it, taking it for granted. You know, there's an old story about the Green Bay Packers and the legendary coach Vince Lombardi. You know, go back a few decades, they'd won 5 Super Bowls in a row. They had Bart Farr and any number of MVPs on their team. And every spring camp, when they gather for the first meet of the season, Vince Lombardi passes a football around. He says, "Gentlemen, this is a football. Pass it around. It has so many laces. It weighs so much. It's made of so much consistency." And they might have been, you can imagine players like, "I know what a football is."
Yeah.
Right.
But what was he doing? He was teaching them, make no presumptions, make no assumptions.
Yes.
You know, get back to the basics.
Yes.
You know,
Love
what
that.
was it that brought you to the temple? What was it that had you dancing 5 feet off the ground?
Yeah.
Get back to that. Don't ever lose track with your roots, you know, and you'll always be enthusiastic. You'll never lose your zest and your gusto. So we call it back to basics. And probably every 6 or 8 weeks that talk should be given in some of the temples.
Totally. I've been reading like the Srila Prabhupada's little books, like the really introductory books, and they're so inspiring. Like I want to hear that that I shouldn't be like hogs, dogs, camels, and asses and all that stuff. Like, and I'm not this body and all this stuff. Like, I need to hear that on a, like you said, on a recurring basis at whatever duration. But
And
yeah,
here's a suggestion: take that passage and put it into an AI program. Just put it as a prompt, paste it in there, see what comes up. It'll be a little canned, a little artificial. But then you make it yours. You know, you change this word, you switch things around like that, and then you've personalized. You've read it, but you want it to be a little bit more embedded. You want it to tattoo it a little bit more in your soul. So this is what I do. I take it. I just put it as a prompt into AI. I get the creative. The beauty about AI is it gets you started. The hardest thing about creating is getting the inspiration, is sitting down and writing the first sentence or so. AI will do that for you.
Yeah.
Then you rearrange things, you change the rhymes, you change the words so that it makes you happy, so that it's your creation. It's not just something that's spoon-fed to you. And then you can, then I would suggest you try to memorize it, as a poem or as a daily affirmation, as a daily reflection.
Wow.
That's what you can do after having read something that speaks to you.
Wow.
You've got the ball, and then you can just like walk with it a little ways.
It's beautiful. Hearing you say that, Prabhu, I wanted to just ask you about prayer, because you talked about how earlier, how we can sing the songs of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we can sing these pre-existing songs, which are wonderful, but it's also powerful to write our own songs. So I was wondering, maybe you can share something with us about prayer, because sometimes I think in devotee communities, we don't talk so much about like the act of kind of just extemporaneous prayer, like, speaking in that way through prayer. I was curious if you had any thoughts about that.
The whole Krishna mantra is the prayer, Lord, please engage me in your service, with the faith that Krishna knows better for us, what's better for us than we do ourselves. And so over and above everything, my heart is always praying, Krishna, please engage me according to your preferences. Use me as you will, make me your instrument. But I know that Krishna's in my heart. He knows me closer than a brother. So basically, when I give myself unconditionally, sometimes someone said it's like having a contract from Krishna, which is blank. Imagine being presented with a contract that's blank.
Yeah.
And you're asked to sign it. and then the details will be filled in later,
Yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah.
So when we say Hare Krishna, we're saying, Krishna, I will sign that blank contract. And I agree that you can fill in everything, including the fine prints later on. That's my prayer, Krishna. And because he's in my heart, he knows me close and the brother. If I really just give it up, and I don't make any conditions on it, and Krishna, I'm yours. There's a rap song. Do you mind?
Please.
Actually, I use the word Ram instead of Krishna.
Okay.
Ram, take my life and let it be consecrated to thee. Ram, take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Ram, take my hands and let them move at the impulse of thy love. Ram, take my feet and let them be swift and beautiful for thee. Ram, take my lips and let them sing, always only for my king. Ram, take my lips and my mouth and let it be filled with messages from thee. Ram, take my silver and my gold, not a mite would I withhold. Ram, take my intellect, use every power as thou shalt choose. Ram, take my will and make it thine, it shall be no longer mine. Ram, take my heart, it shall be thy royal throne. It shall be no longer mine, it shall be thy royal throne. Ram, take my love, my Lord, I pour at thy feet a treasure store. Ram, take myself, and I will be ever only all for thee. If we really just clear everything out, all ego and we just give it to Ram, then he's going to slot us in exactly according to the talents and the abilities that he already gave us. Nobody knows us better than Krishna because he made us the way we are. So when you ask Krishna without any conditions, you can pray for this and that and the other thing. But bottom line is, Krishna, just use me as you would wish. So basically he could do anything, he could do anything. He could exploit you like most people in the material world would do. He could take your money, take your wife, take your cattle, strike you with a disease. He's God. I mean, he can do that anyway.
Yeah.
Let's not fool ourselves. Yeah. So when you put it out there, when you make yourself vulnerable and say, Lord, just use me, I believe that's when he's going to really take your strong points and bring them to the forefront. I believe, again, just the same thing, depending on how much you trust him and how joyful you are in the darkness, to that degree, he's going to bring you out better off than you were before. So to the degree to which you, and I don't like to use the word surrender, but you put yourself in the middle of what God wants you to do, to that degree, he's going to fulfill all the innermost dreams of your heart. There was a story when I grew up, probably it's still the case, they valued well-roundedness in education. Is it still that way?
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Yeah.
We had to take all these courses that we had no interest in whatsoever. You had to take so many of these and so many of these. And I remember suffering through chemistry and the periodic table. Like,
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
what am I doing here? And when I got out of school, I never, I love learning. I'm a lifelong reader. And for Krishna consciousness, I'll learn Photoshop, I'll learn AI, but to learn it for its own sake or to be forced to learn it and not have any practical application, I hate that. So there was a school in which there was an eagle, a rabbit, and a squirrel. The school followed the modern recommendations of being well-rounded. And so the teachers told the eagle that he was weak in running, so he should concentrate on running. They told the squirrel that he was weak in flying, so the squirrel should concentrate on flying. And they told the rabbit he was weak in climbing, so he should try climbing. So the eagle tried running, the rabbit tried climbing, the squirrel tried flying. What do you think happened? They hated it.
Yeah.
And they all flunked out, see? Let the eagle be the best flyer it can be. Let the squirrel be the best climber it can be. And let the rabbit be the best runner it can be. Work towards your strengths.
Yeah.
So Krishna knows what our strengths are. And to the degree that we unconditionally surrender it to him, he will bring those strengths to the forefront.
Yeah.
That's our prayer.
Yeah. That's a great place to end. Thank you so much, Prabhu, for joining us. That was a really fantastic talk, and I'm really honored that you agreed to this interview.
Thanks very much. See you tonight at the Sunday feast, perhaps. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Right.
If you want to get in touch with Caru Prabhu, or you are interested in his projects, I'll put a link in the description for his website, social media, and all that stuff. And please, as usual, please like, subscribe, and share this podcast. Also donate if you'd like. Also, all this doesn't come on its own. It requires donations. So thank you everyone for listening. Good night. Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.